Welcome everybody to the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 370, Introspection. My name's Matthew Turner. I'll be joined shortly by Ashley Soden. We are taking a look at the Detroit Lions' first half of the season so far. We're going to have a look as if we were playing the Lions. So a little preview episode of how the Lions have done so far, basically tendencies, that sort of thing, a bit of self-scouting. And then looking ahead to issues, how to fix them. We're going to have a look at all of the injuries and when people are suspected to come back. All of that sort of thing. Hope everyone's had a great weekend. We're going to be taking your questions on the fly tonight. So if you're in the live chat, do shout them at us. If you can at the channel so I can see it, then I'll add them as we go. And we will answer them. And then we'll finish off just talking about the weekend that was in the NFL. But first, do join our Discord channel. Great place to chat Lions all year round, especially good during a bye week, of course. The link is in the live chat right now, or it is in your podcast feed. College Football Podcast will be returning on Wednesday. Another big weekend of college football, including another loss for LSU and the end of Brian Kelly. Already, some people from Michigan State are saying that he should be joining them. I'm sure you State fans out there are not massively enamoured with that idea, but hey-ho, it was a really exciting weekend of college football, so do join Anne and Ryan for that one, probably on Wednesday. Please do like this episode, sub to the podcast, you guys know what to do by now. And we are, of course, Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetized, and the tip jar in the description on YouTube, so if you want to show some love, that would be amazing. Only a little bit of news to go through this afternoon. Practice windows are going to be activated for a couple of players. Lions getting slightly healthier with linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez and safety Daniel Thomas. Their practice windows, a 21-day window they have from IR. That's being activated from tomorrow, which is Tuesday if you're listening on the podcast feed. So those guys will be able to start practicing from Tuesday, and then we'll have 21 days to be activated to the main roster. If they do not get activated, they will be on injured reserve for the rest of the season. Of course, therefore, the implication is they will be returning in those 21 days, come what may. Other pieces of news there. Quarterback Jared Goff is going to be on tonight's Manning cast for Monday Night Football. So if you enjoy Goff and you enjoy the Mannings on that show, then you'll be able to listen to him for Washington against Kansas City. So that should be good fun. I won't be watching. I'll be in bed, like any sane Brit at that time. Of course, until the Lions play, at least on a Monday night, and then we're up. The other piece of great news is that Khalif Raymond and his wife Julia have had their first child since we have joined, since we have talked to you last. So congratulations to Khalif and Julia. Excellent news. Great way to spend your bye week. Not going to lie, as in comes Ash. So just on those pieces of news, I think the biggest one there has to be the return of linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez. A huge part of what we do, especially if there are any injuries, the stuff that he can do coming in sub packages, as long as he's not getting exposed against the passers. He did do a little bit in years past, but when he has played in the last 12 months or so, or 18 months I probably should say, he was absolutely terrific. So really looking forward to his return, and maybe he can fill the hole that's been left behind by Zach Cunningham. As Ash has not quite appeared, even though he's in the room. Here he is!
There you go. I was just letting you finish talking. I didn't want to interrupt halfway through.
Just gone through news. Rodrigo's back.
Hell yeah. Like when I was coming out of work today, I saw that Jordan Schultz tweeted. I was like, yes. We knew it was around the corner. Dan did mention it in his presser after the Bucks. It was definitely on the cards. Nice to see it's happening because, yeah, he's just such a good piece for us in terms of, as you're saying, he can fill in practically either all three linebacker roles. And, people might remember from his rookie season, he's an absolute demon on special teams as well. So he just fills all four of those sort of linebacker roles for us. And he's got, everyone's tweeting it now. Well, Billy's putting out the clip from him and Shep on Hard Knocks, where Shep's calling out the entire linebacker room full of veterans that Malcolm coming in as a 6th-round pick is outplaying him in the drills. He just brings that culture that fits in, and, just nice to have him back. And then Daniel Thomas, I know obviously he's not as important, honestly. Don't know why we're activating him when he's been supplanted as safety free by Thomas Harper, and his special teams role has, at least for now, been taken over by Jamie. So is he needed? I don't know, but at least let's see if he's still available. Maybe we can then, activate him, cut him, and then do whatever, put him on the practice squad. But let's have some reinforcements coming in when other teams around the league getting less and less healthy. Looking at the Bills, for instance, losing Ed Oliver and so on. So at least we're getting a bit healthier in this kind of crunch time now, this with the games coming up.
I guess I would just say this is a 3-week audition for Jamie to stay on the roster, frankly. He's the guy active. He's the guy going to be taking all the practice reps. Yes, Daniel's going to be activated for his practice window now, so they're both going to be practicing, but presumably Daniel's going to kind of ramp up, whereas Jamie should already be there, so he's got the kind of head start. Can he do enough to keep his place? That's going to be a big question. I don't suspect Daniel will be activated until day 20 or day 21 of his 21-day window, frankly. But anyway, are you staying up for Monday Night Football? Are you watching Jared?
Unfortunately, I can't. I'm due back in work at 7:00 tomorrow morning, so it's gonna probably we do this. I quickly have a snack and then rush upstairs to go to bed. So I'll say that, and then I'll probably be able to go to sleep, and I'll have to watch it anyway. So who knows?
It's funny. You're forced to be responsible now that you've got a job that actually forces you to be in work at a reasonable hour. How about it?
I know. Well, you say that it's a train station job. So in a couple of weeks, when I've done all my training, I could be doing some night shifts. I might have to do a week where I'm up all night. So that responsibleness has not gone just yet. It's not fully here yet. I might still be able to live like a rebel.
We are, of course, about to talk about the Detroit Lions. In there, of course, we might be talking about whether Aiden Hutchinson is in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. But in another piece of news, another Defensive Player of the Year has emerged. His name is Ashley Soden. He is... why don't you say what your defensive code or joint Defensive Player of the Year for?
The flag league that I'd wanted to do, so we do like the official BAFA one, which is your kind of like main one. But me and my team this year have been taking part in Outlaw Flag League, which is a sort of another national one that's a bit more fun. There's a few more weird rules like bullet blitzes and actual kick returns, which is always fun because you want to block your special teams. So the fact I actually get to play some special teams is kind of fun. But yeah, this Saturday was the final day of the season, kind of like finals, and we were in our own little league, and we came third in our league, which is not too bad for a first one. But yeah, I knew I was up for the award of it because I broke the single season sack record of 26 sacks. A whole lot of luck, I'm going to be honest. But because of the weather and because my drive needed to get home, I couldn't stick around. So I just thought, oh, yeah, I know some teams haven't voted for me, the ones I thought that would, because I knew them kind of thing. Because like, there's no point. I'm not going to get it. I might get into, I didn't even know there was the other one that was going on. So I was like, let's just go home. Kind of regretting that because within 2 minutes of us leaving the place it was held, we got into a car crash. A minor one. We are unscathed. The car, I don't know what's happened to that, but yes, the driver's had to do claim for that. Come home finally after getting driven to Nottingham, having to get a train back rather than getting driven home. Have a nap and wake up and it turns out that I not only did I get co-defensive player of the year with another person who got about 12 sacks, a couple of interceptions and that, but I was named onto my league's all-star team for all my sacks. So in a couple of weeks when we have our flag AGM for my team, I'll be getting a nice t-shirt and hopefully a medal to wear, and then I'll definitely be rocking that on the podcast at some point, just like my defensive player of the year one. And then when Aiden gets it, because he definitely deserves it with the form he's on. God, it's going to be fun to have 2 defensive player of the years to do with the Lions this year instead of just one.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
26 sacks is not a fluke. A few you can argue with, but you can't have that level of consistency and not say it's pure skill. Let's get on to the Lions season as has been. Of course, we've just had a week 8. Lions having a bye this week, so in 7 games, they are 5-2. Expected wins is 4.9. That is the closest I've seen in all of the games we've played so far for a team to the actual win total and the expected win total. So the Lions are a 5-2 team. They should be a 5-2 team on the basis of how they've played against these teams. They started with a loss against Green Bay, a pretty horrible one at that. That's the one, of course, that has put Green Bay in the number 1 seed as it stands. They've followed wins against the Bears, the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals, before a loss at Kansas City, and then most recently a win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Lions are currently second in division, half a game back from Green Bay at 5-1-1. We're currently the fifth seed, i.e. the top of the wild cards. We are one game behind all of the other NFC division leaders. So even if Green Bay was a half a game back rather than a half a game ahead, we'd only be the fourth seed as it currently stands. But of course, there's still a lot to play for. Our schedule potentially gets slightly easier, maybe, if you buy into that sort of thing. Green Bay's might get tougher. Let's go through injuries and then the depth chart, and then I'll stop there. So in terms of the people that are injured but not on an injury list, i.e. IR, PUP, NFIs, anyone on short-term injury, we're talking Sione Vaki, Terrion Arnold, Avonte Maddox, Kirby Joseph. These guys are expected back. Vaki in week 10, so that's 2 weeks from now. Terrion Arnold in week 10, Avonte Maddox in week 10, Kirby Joseph this coming weekend in week 9. This is all courtesy of Jimmy Liao, who of course is the doctor who follows the Lions on Twitter and features on the Detroit Lions podcast. Shamelessly, we're stealing what he's got on there, but he had the temerity to put it up on Twitter, so he can't expect people to not use the damn thing. But credit where credit is due. In terms of the injured reserve, all of these people, I mean, there's no such thing as season-ending injured reserve, really, I don't think. It's you're on injured reserve and you can return or not. I mean, yes, you can designate people in different ways, but for all intents and purposes, you're either shut down for the year because you're too injured or you're not. So on injured reserve for the Lions, and you'll hear some names you haven't heard for a while here because they were injured in camp and they were never going to make it anyway, but never mind. Running back, Kyle Robichaux. Remember him? He's done for the season. Tight end, Shane Zylstra, expected back in week 11. Offensive tackle, Giovanni Manu. We have no confirmation on this. It appears as though he may be done for the season, which obviously is a big blow to him and to us, considering that we kind of needed him. Jamarco Jones, also tackle. He's done for the season. I can't remember Heron's first name. I have to admit.
He's Justin Heron.
Thank you, sir. Justin Heron, done for the season. Also a tackle. Guard Colby Sawstall, done for the season. Defensive ends, Marcus Davenport expected back in week 12. Linebacker Zach Cunningham, we do not know yet how long he's going to be out for. Linebacker Ezekiel Turner, again, remember him, he's done for the season. Cornerback DJ Reed expected back in week 12, so just under 4 weeks from now. Khalil Dorsey back in week 15, so that's just under 2 months away now. Maybe a bit sooner than that. Ennis Rakestraw done for the season. Safety Daniel Thomas expected back in week 13, although his practice window's being activated. So if it is 3 weeks from now, that would be week 9, 10, 11. So back for 12. And then draft pick of this season, 7th round, Dan Jackson. I want to call him Daniel Jackson because then I can imagine that he's in Stargate. He is done for the season too. The other lists, the PUP, the potentially unable to perform. Those are the...
Physically unable to perform.
Sorry? Physically unable to
Physically unable to perform.
Whatever. Potentially unable. Physically unable. Yeah. So Miles Frazier, 5th round draft pick, guard, expected back in week 11. So actually pretty soon. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, his practice window activated. This says week 12. 3 weeks from now would be week 12 if he was activated the Monday after that Sunday's game. And defensive tackle Levi Onzarike is done for the season. And then one guy on the non-football injury list, i.e. injured before the season started, or off the football field. Defensive end Josh Pascal is expected back in week 14, so about 6 weeks from now. Looking at how the Lions are right at this moment for the entire depth chart. Quarterback Jared Goff backed up by Kyle Allen. Running backs Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Jacob Sailors, Craig Reynolds and Sione Vaki. Wide receivers Khalif Raymond, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Isaac Tesla and Dominic Lovett. Tight end Sam Laporta, Brock Wright and Ross Dwelly. Offensive line Taylor Decker, Christian Mahogany, Graham Glasgow, Tate Ratledge, Penny Sewell, Dan Skipper, Tristan Colon, and Coyote Aushika. On defence, defensive line, Aidan Hutchinson, DJ Reader, Ali McNeil, Tyler Lacey. They're backed up by Al-Qadim Mohammed, Roy Lopez, Tyleek Williams and Pat O'Connor, as well as Tyrus Wheat, Mekhi Wingo and Quinton Jefferson. Linebackers, Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes, backed up by Grant Stewart and Trevor Nowaski. Cornerbacks, including nickel, of Terrion Arnold and Meek Robertson and Avonte Maddox, apparently, backed up by Nick Whiteside, Rock Yassin, Arthur Millette. And then safeties, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, backed up by Eric Hallett, Thomas Harper, and Jamie Robinson. Special teamers, kicker is Jack Fox. Sorry, punter is Jack Fox. Bloody blech. Kickers Jake Bates, long snapper Hogan Hatton. Just looking down further, the practice squad as it stands. Wide receivers Tom Kennedy, Malik Cunningham. Is he a quarterback? Is he a wide receiver? He's still on the team. And Jackson Meeks, remember him? He's still here. Quarterback CJ Bethard. Tight end Zach Horton, also fullback. Offensive lineman Devin Cochran, Mason Miller, Michael Neeson, Kingsley Aguakin, or Guakun, whatever you call him. And then on the defense, edge and former Armyman Andre Carter II. Interior guys Miles Adams and Chris Smith. Linebacker Ty Summers. Cornerback Kendall Fuller and Trey Flowers. And safety Lauren Strickland. All right, Ash, I've talked for a while, so I'm going to stop. Lions 5-2, half a game back in division, 1 game back from the first seed, even if Green Bay weren't there. Very injured, but not too many really big injuries that rule people out for the entire season. Maybe Onzarike is the biggest one of that list, or Ennis Rakestraw potentially. Everyone else in the next month and a bit, they're all coming back. So 5-2, deservedly 5-2. Maybe losses against the better teams in that schedule and wins against potentially some quite weak teams in there, apart from Tampa Bay, I would say. But otherwise, getting healthier and deservedly where they are.
Yeah. I almost don't want to do the thing of just writing off week 1, but you almost can in a way, because it's week 1, it's weird, and it's just, we had all those extenuating circumstances, not to do the Chiefs thing from a couple of years ago and put an asterisk on it, but I very much want to do that where you look at the rest of the sample size in terms of us being 5-1 aside from that, and it just shows what this team is. Yes, there's still definitely issues, as we'll get into in a bit, but the fact that going into Baltimore, yes, they were injured a bit, but that's still a very hard place to go. They still had Lamar going then, and Derrick Henry was beginning his slump, but wasn't exactly like bad at that point, and we beat them. Cleveland, that going into that game, no, I know obviously their offense was dire, but the week before they just beat the Packers. They were the number 1 defense in football. They had all these things going for them, and we beat them. Cincinnati, it looks worse than it is, than it actually was on the score line. I know it seems very close to 13-point gap, but most of those 24 points they scored came in the fourth quarter when all our corners were basically out. We were just having to put Trey Flowers out there, and they just finally managed to hit the deep balls because that's what they were doing. The Kansas City loss is what it is, just bad defensive game plan for us and the ref stuff. And then last week, we bounced back, and even with a damaged secondary against someone going into that game very much as an MVP candidate. I know he lost Mark Evans during that game. He was questionable with a hamstring injury anyway, and Ibuka was limited, but they still had a pretty potent offensive all throughout the season so far. We held them to 9 points. Well, yes, 5-2 is it's probably the best that people could hope for. And yeah, you do the whole thing we did of the draft a couple of years ago. You swap the losses around. So if we swap, for instance, that Green Bay had lost to Baltimore, that'd be pretty much what everyone predicted by and large. Nothing to really turn up our nose at. It is just annoying that, yeah, we're caught with like now, because obviously the bye week and Green Bay having that pesky tie on their record, we're seemingly back in the division and in the playoff race, but there's still a lot of football to be played. And yeah, with those reinforcements coming in, well, we saw what the impact of having one player come back and Lee McNeil can do. What can getting Malcolm do for this team in terms of now we can start rotating our linebackers? And yeah, if there's certain situations where it's not the best one to have Anzalone out there or Derek Barnes or Campbell, we can start mixing and matching with that. We know obviously TA to come back potentially as well. And the good thing is with the form of a meek, I think it was Bishop Brown on the DLP suggested this. We don't exactly have to put Terrian as a starter every game now if there's certain matchups, like the Vikings, where Meek seemingly is the better matchup. We can play him. It's not a slight to Arnold. If anything, I help him because then you're suddenly not put him in a situation where he's going to get burnt in situations and look bad. We can bring him in that way, ease him in off the shoulder injury and do stuff like that. Davenport, I know the fan base is probably split on him, but the team really likes him for a reason, and getting him back will help. DJ Breed, when he's back after the Vikings game, well, there's our cornerback one back, and suddenly that secondary looks a lot better. Dorsey, good, solid corner backup and good special teamer. Like all of these guys, aside from Manu, maybe, that are the ones that can kind of come back that have got us those ones that have been put on in season. They can come and play roles even as much as people joke that I don't like him. Even Chase Ilstra, because he's been okay. Has he been as good as James Ilstra to this team? I honestly don't know. So all these players to come back, if they do come back, because obviously we don't know, as you say, we don't know with Cunningham, we don't know with Manu. All the ones that can feasibly come back right now will have spots to come back to on this team pretty much, unless, I don't know, Whiteside looks so good on special teams, it's not worth out bringing Dorsey back. We do what half the fan base seemingly still wants to. If you look at Twitter, and we trade for an edge, they're all going to walk back into roles pretty much, which is good because we need those reinforcements. And then Jamie, for instance, we can cut and put to the practice squad if we need to, or Dwelly, he's probably not going to get signed anywhere as well. So we can stop putting them on the practice squad, and suddenly that veteran squad, as Dan supposedly calls it, gets a whole lot stronger as well.
Been a really interesting beginning to the year, because if you have a look at the teams that we played at the time we played them, the Green Bay game, it's easy to say, okay, it's week 1 and they caught us cold, but you don't expect that of a Dan Campbell team. It's not what you would preach. I'm not so willing to just wash that away. Chicago Bears were reeling, still a bad team at that point. Gotten better, maybe. I mean, they think all hell's, come for them now, considering this weekend just gone. Yeah, they're still ahead of the Vikings, so it could be worse. But at that time, the Bears were a poor team. We played Baltimore Ravens at a time where everyone thought they were good, but as soon as they played us, everything went to pot, and maybe they just weren't as good as everyone thought they were. I think that Lamar was playing injured at that point anyway. We beat Cleveland, who are not a good team. We beat Cincinnati when they weren't a good team. We looked terrible against Kansas City. And then we beat Tampa Bay in a very convincing way. So I think the only games I can look back on and say I lean on the reliability of these games, because I feel like it was a level playing field and the teams were fairly evenly matched, I think is Green Bay and Tampa Bay. And it's the one furthest away and the one most recent, and I don't really know what to read into that other than I don't think this Detroit side has been tested as much as I would have liked to have been at this point. Having said that, considering this is meant to be the harder part of the schedule, in some ways that's quite refreshing, because it's like, okay, I feel like that, and hopefully it kind of softens up from here. Now, that may not be the case, because, is it a softer schedule? You've got the Vikings, which is an in-division game. Yes, they're not a good team, but it's going to be hard because it's in division. At Commanders, they've been poor, but the longer time goes on, the more they get healthier. Terry McLaurin comes back into it. Jaden Daniels gets healthier. That could be harder. At Philadelphia, I'm convinced they're not a good team, but they're going to keep churning out wins. And then the Giants are better than expected. You've got to play Green Bay again, and that's maybe the most crucial game on the entire slate, and that's not going to be easy, even at home. The Cowboys are frisky. They're probably not a good team, but they can win that game. At the Rams, who are maybe one of the best teams in the NFC, the Steelers again are frisky, and you know Rodgers is going to want to win that game. And then finishing at Vikings at Bears, two not good teams. I mean, frankly, I would like us to win all of those games. I think we should be favourites in all of those games, apart from maybe at Rams. But I don't think that schedule's a soft touch. And if I have a look at the teams that we've played in the Bears, Browns and Bengals, I think actually both sides of the slate are pretty even, really. I don't know if you feel the same way about the first half of the year and the second half of the year as things have shaken out. But I don't really buy into the hard bit, easy bit coming up.
Yeah, nor do I, because, well, as we saw this week, as we get into in a bit, teams can come in as absolute favourites, and it seems they've got all the matchups in the world in their favour, and they lay a goose, like they just lay a shitter. Like, I don't buy it at all, but you can only beat what's in front of you. So if it is, we're coming up against a Vikings team, that's because obviously the next one's up that is either trotting out JJ McCarthy, still seemingly a rookie, coming off a low ankle sprain behind the offensive line, or it's Carson Wentz sticking that out just to try and protect JJ McCarthy from getting hurt again. We could only do what they're put in front of us. We'll still put up a fight. We'll still probably give up points to them because we've got Aaron Jones coming back and he seemingly always plays well against us. But I don't buy the hard bit, soft bit, because it could be. I know, obviously, let's say with the Giants, it would have been a lot harder. We had been discussing this 48 hours ago, and we didn't know that Cam Scatterby was going to get a horrific injury, but he would have been a tough matchup for us. The Eagles, if we looked at it 3 weeks ago when they just seemingly couldn't work out what to do on offense, they would have looked a lot easier. But now suddenly they've remembered pretty much how to pass the ball. And I know Saquon got hurt this week, but Tank Bixby looked really good, so they'll still be good. There's any given Sunday, like even the Cowboys, they don't look good on defense, but boy, that offense, yeah, it's frisky. They can put 40 points on pretty much anyone they want to, seemingly. So I don't buy easy hard. It's just you've got to take it week by week, which we know this Dan Campbell team will do, and they'll circle matchups and ways to motivate themselves. Be it, oh yeah, Minnesota, you tried to push us last season, and you still got quite a lot of fans who seemingly are just dicks. Let's put it bluntly. Will beat you, and then Commanders, revenge game, Philadelphia, battle of the supposed Titans in the NFC, right? We'll circle that. Let's see who's better there. Giants, well, sometimes they've been a bogey team of ours, but Dable is he head coach by them. But you just go through, and each time there's something that can motivate this team to beat them. Hell, week 16 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, well, we saw what happened to them last night, but do we want to be the ones that finally end the career of the boogeyman? Probably, and that defense is not exactly great. There's stuff there that will make every game hard, but stuff that will make this game every easy. And it's just, can we exploit the right matchups, and can the things that need to be corrected over this bye week, have they been corrected? We'll see.
All right, let's get into the stats. We're going to do a little bit more depth, only because it's our own team. We know it well, so none of this should come as a surprise. This is according to PFF, the third best overall team with a 90.7 grade. The offense is fifth, the defense is second, the special teams is eighth. This is after all the games played up to the time of speaking. I've just updated it. So it's before Monday Night Football, but after all the Sunday games which have currently been graded. In detail, we are the 21st team for the passing game, 13th in pass block, second in receiving, 18th in the run, and 5th in run blocking. On the defense, we're 4th in run defense, 5th in tackling, 3rd in pressure, and 4th in coverage. So the entire unit, front to back, is top 5 in defense, whereas they think we're very good at receiving and otherwise fairly mediocre in run and pass, but pass blocking has been above average. For DVOA overall, we're the 3rd team, 5th in offense, 1st on defense, special teams 5th. In EPA per play, 2nd overall, 7th on offense, 5th in defense. And just going to ESPN's advanced metrics, which I think really hammers home how good the coverage has been, because these are all about win rates on the offense and defensive lines. We are last in the NFL in pass rush win rate, 32nd. We are second to last in run stuff win rate, 18th in pass block win rate, and 23rd in run block win rate. Now, it really depends what you like in terms of your metrics, because if this truly is a top 5 unit across the board by PFF on defense, DVOA 1st, EPA 5th. How on earth, Ash, are we last in the league and second to last in the league in pass block win rate and run stuff win rate? I can't quite get my head around those metrics. But all in all, both sides of the ball are firing, top 5 units on offense and defense, basically across the board. EPA slightly lower, but the overall is still very high. We may have been suffering, and we may have, been awful in some parts against Green Bay and against Kansas City, and yet this team is right up there in all 3 phases across all major metrics, with the exception of the ESPN stuff I just quoted.
Yeah, honestly, it's going to sound bad for me being the stat man, but I don't fully understand ESPN's metrics because it just does not add up to the eye test sometimes. Like, you look around the league and you look at some of the bloody offensive lines around out there, and you can say they're much worse than ours, and yet they're ranked higher. And then with the defensive lines as well, I know, okay, yes, and this is something we'll come on to probably with the scheme and that, but right now, pass rush rise, at least on the initial downs, we don't really set up to really do much in that. So, like, first down, it's pretty much Hutch, maybe Tyleek, maybe Aleem when he was playing on those initial downs and passing downs that win stuff. The everything else is supposed to design to stop the run. But why are we so low in run stuff? I just don't get it. It's a weird metric. It's something that I definitely want to, when I get time, which I've got less of now, so maybe I should have done it earlier, look into and see, because I just don't get it, because it doesn't match up with the eye test. It doesn't match up with everything else. And when your metric is out of line with everyone else's, you're the outlier, you're doing something wrong there. So they need to look at that. With everything else, it pretty much matches the eye test for me. So like the EPAs, it does, especially when you dig down a bit more into them and you see that passing EPA per pass with 5th makes sense. Rushing it with 19th, I think that also matches the eye test. The run game hasn't been as good as it has been past years, which also explains partly the bad run grade from PFF, 18th, below average, not where we usually like it to be. Run block's good, which suggests that maybe it's more of a running back thing than it is the run blocking. But again, that's hard to judge because it is minutiae, and sometimes PFF just doesn't understand what we're trying to do schematically. Pass blocking, that's to be expected. It's supposed to be low because, we've had a rotation at left tackle the past couple of weeks, and even when Taylor Deck's been playing, he's had an injured shoulder, so we're going to let the pressure there. The interior is pretty much all new, with Graham signing back to centre, which hasn't done for a while, and it's like his best position. Mahogany, as much as we love him, is still technically a rookie, and then Tate is a rookie, so they're going to give up pressures. It does pretty much pass everything that you sort of see metric wise in terms of eye test to them, which is rare to say about PFF. Usually they're the ones you're like, why you graded this like this? But for once, I pretty much agree with everything they've got, except for maybe the special teams grade, which I know is 8th in the league. We must have rose up a hell of a lot, because you remember the first couple of weeks of the season, I was bitching about the kick coverage. And yeah, it seemingly sorted itself out. So hopefully that can continue, because that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is our special teams. And sometimes that'll win us games. And that's what we need when it comes later in the season. It comes to January, February. Sometimes a last second kick from Bates could be the difference between a win and a loss. And I trust him.
All right, stats on the offense. Quarterback Jared Goff is 152 of 203. That's 74.9%, with 1,631 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a passer rating of 116.4. That is way up there in terms of passer ratings through a significant portion of a season all time. That's insane. QBR's a lot lower though, 66.7, and a PFF grade of 66.5 is lower than in recent years. Jahmyr Gibbs is the lead running back, 104 carries for 526 yards. That's 5.1 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns. He's also 26 of 28 through the air for 194 and a touchdown. That's exceptionally high completion percentage, even if your A dot is negative, which I think for Jahmyr Gibbs it is. I think he, on average, is catching a couple of yards behind the line of scrimmage, if I'm honest. Ash will correct me, I'm sure, but I think that's it. But even then, you miss some, your quarterback isn't quite accurate even in that short space of time. You take your eye off the ball because you're looking at blockers. You shouldn't be up at that rate, but he is up at like 92% or something like that. PFF grade is 77.9. Was I about right?
Minus 0.4 yards, okay. Average depth of target.
Still behind the line. Lead receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 50 of 61 for 538, 10.8 yards per catch and 7 touchdowns. PFF grade of 87.8. And lead tight end is Sam Laporta, 29 of 36 for 339. That is 11.7 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns, PFF grade of 78.9. Other good grades in there, Penny Sewell, 95.2, significantly higher than anyone else in the league at tackle. When I say significantly, I mean significantly higher than anyone else in the NFL. I'm not sure anyone else in qualifying players is above 90. He's at 95. So, significant. David Montgomery at 71.7 as well. The only person with a grade who's played significant reps below a grade of 55 is tight end Brock Wright, tight end 2, with a 54.4. This team is 20th on third down at 37.6% completion, 15th on fourth down, 8 of 13, so 61.5%, and they've scored touchdowns on 21 of 29 trips. That's 72.4%, which is third in the NFL. I think there was one game where they really struggled in the red zone, and apart from that, they have been deadly, absolutely deadly in the red area. So might not be great on third down, but that's because they're getting a lot of the business done earlier than that, and it's really refreshing to see. On defense, lead defensive tackle has been DJ Reader to this point. Of course, Aleem McNeil is back. Tyreek Williams is the other one who's played a lot of reps. Reader has 9 tackles and 3 quarterback hits and a PFF grade of 65.5. Lead edge, of course, is Aiden Hutchinson. He has a pass defended, a league-leading 4 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery, 6 sacks, 16 tackles, 6 TFLs, 13 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 92.2. Linebacker leader is Jack Campbell. He has a pass defended and 2 forced fumbles with a fumble recovery, 3 sacks, 64 tackles, 5 TFLs, 2 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 89, which for a linebacker is exceptional. He is up there in the top 5, I think. He was higher than that until the last game. Until the Kansas City game, I should say. Lead cornerback is DJ Reed, of course, injured at the moment, but he's been excellent. 1 interception, 4 passes defended, a fumble recovery, 16 tackles, PFF grade of 71.8. Lead safety, well, at least statistically, has been Kirby Joseph. 3 interceptions, 4 passes defended, 18 tackles, PFF grade of 59.1. I will say, we all acknowledge he had a really poor start to the season. He's come on really strong since then. Kind of really turned things around, but obviously the grade is the average of the season so far. Other good grades in there. Al-Qadim Mohammed, edge 81. What a glow up for Al-Qadim. Safety Brian Branch 76.7. Linebacker Alex Anzalone 7.7. Other bad grades. Cornerback Terrion Arnold 49.3. The debate about him will rage on, I'm sure. And defensive lineman Pat O'Connor 48.2. And then the vital reps, third down, 14th, allowing it 37.6% of the time. I will say, offense and defense, exactly the same number of attempts and conversions. Remarkable stat. They've both faced, on offense and defense, 85 attempts, and have both allowed or converted it 32 times. Remarkable. Fourth down, 6 of 13, 46%. That's 6th. They really tighten up on fourth down. That's incredible. And then they've allowed touchdowns on 14 trips out of 22. That's 63.6%. That's 22nd in the NFL. I will say, on offense, they've had 29 trips, and they've only allowed 22 trips. So while the conversion rate at 63% is about 2 in every 3, they've faced 7 more trips to the red zone than they have created themselves, which speaks a lot, I think, to how they've done so far this season. A load more stats there, Ash, but it's remarkable, I think, the players that maybe have graded out poorly, who are still having good statistical years, but then just those players who in past years have maybe been graded mediocre, who have really turned it on this year.
Yeah, so I was quickly checking. Jack Campbell is still the number 2 linebacker in all of football behind Fred Warner. So that's damn good. Though number 3 is surprising to me with Divine Diablo coming at number 3. And then, of course, number 5 being Jihad Campbell. Told you we sort of drafted him. But yeah, the team, the stars are still standing out. Like Penny, you're right, is by far and away the number 1 tackle in football. Number 2, with about nearly 9 points of grade behind him, is Garrett Bowles for the Broncos with an 85. No, 86, I mean, sorry. So Penny is doing ungodly things, you know. I didn't really see, Lane Johnson when I was quickly looking at the top tackles. He definitely wasn't in the top three, and I thought he was the best tackle in football, better than Penny. Eagles fans. Obviously trying to wind people up. Goff is on a great tear. I know, obviously, he did have a bit of a bad moment against the Bucks, and there's been a couple, one or two sort of goof plays every now and then again, but he's been pretty damn good. But yes, he won't get respect around the league from most people because he isn't Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, all those kind of QBs that can run around. Just highly efficient with what he does. Gibbs, I don't know. Like, it's going to sound rough. I know he's been one of the best receiving backs in the league in terms of PFF grade and that. We've been hearing now, it's off season after off season, he'd be more involved in the passing game, and it hasn't fully happened yet. Hopefully, it can happen in the second half. And the running, while he did spring that massive run against the Bucks, there's been a lot of these running around trying to make something happen when it's clearly just needs to blow the blade dead, and it takes from like a run for no game or run for loss of 1 yard. It turns into losses of 5-6 yards and puts us behind the sticks. It puts us in these situations as we see with the third downs where we're not in the most favorable situations. Because I think Jeremy's just tweeted that out a couple of minutes ago. One of the reasons it's frustrating that we're so bad on third down, 20th in the league, is because we're the most efficient team on first and second down. But if teams can get us onto that third down, especially if it's third and longs, like I think we all saw that stat that was coming up in the Bucks game when it was third and long. We've not converted one this season. That's something it's definitely going to work on. I don't know, we're probably spoiling what we're going to discuss later with that, but that's definitely frustrating. Amon Ra, like, even when teams try to scheme him out, he still manages to pop up and get his stuff. He's just continuing his generational run as one of the best receivers in this league. That again will get overlooked because he's not a true X receiver. Laporta's having a quietly good season, and the best thing about it is his run blocking's got better this season than it was the past couple of years. And then Monty's Monty. The success rate is there. The yards per carry isn't. Hopefully that improves as we go into the second half of the season. Everyone else is doing okay. Like, Taylor's doing as best as you can when he's having a shoulder injury. Mahogany and Ratledge are doing good for the stake that they've got in terms of years. Glasgow was holding up remarkably well at centre. Still want to probably look for an upgrade for him in the draft or in free agency if we can. But for a 1 year fill-in, especially considering the panic, inverted commas, that happened when Frank retired, he's doing well. Tesla's maybe suffering from the curse of having two amazing catches to open his career and not much else since. Hopefully he gets worked into the offense more. But as we'll probably get into in a bit, there are some issues with the offensive play calling and that need to be worked on, and hopefully they have done that in the bye. That's still soon to say when we're still up there in points per game. We're up there in red zone efficiency. Fourth downs, well, we're always going to be up there because the amount of times we go for it, when the amount of times we've gone for it before, we're good at executing that. It is just those third downs that need to happen, because if we can put, I think it was on the LP again where I heard where if we converted 5 of those third and longs I mentioned earlier, I think that third down efficiency goes from 20th in the league to top 10. It's literally the difference of 5 conversions. But those 5 conversions can make the difference between us being, not to try and put too much gravitas on it, the difference between us being a wildcard team and us winning division. It could really come down to that in terms of when you stretch out, oh, yeah, if we got this third down, we might win this game, which I know me and you both don't like to reduce games just to one play, but it is they are those kind of game-changing plays going from oh, yeah, this is a third down, we either convert or get in position in a fourth and short to go for it and convert it, or, oh, no, we haven't got it, right, we have to punt it away, and that's a lost possession. So it's stuff to work there. But the defense, the only thing to work on really, the defense, is getting people back healthy, because I think Shep has learned from the mistake of the Chiefs game where he played a lot more zone, which is understandable considering the personnel issues we had. He learned from that. That wasn't the right thing for the personnel, and actually leaning to your tendencies. And it worked against Baker. Obviously, it really helps got a lean back, but there's not much I can ask from this defense, much more. Like, maybe get a few more turnovers, but everyone wants more turnovers on a defense, don't they? And, considering the number one defense right now and creating turnovers is also pretty low down in terms of yards and points given up. I'm looking at you, Chicago. Maybe turnovers aren't everything, but Hutch's defensive player of the year, as you mentioned earlier, he should be it. I know people want Michael Parsons or Nick Benito. They might have higher sack numbers, same with Miles Garrett, but in terms of impact to this team, like the forced fumbles and that. They don't really have that. DJ Reader, while the stats don't look good, has been playing well in the role. Jack Campbell is becoming a top 5 linebacker in the league. I know obviously PFF wise is second right now, but you still got some of the ones who've got a bit more of a sort of record behind him, like Myra Davis, Fred Warner, they'll be ahead of him. DJ Reed has shown why he was overlooked by everyone. I know PFF, when they did their top 10 cornerback rankings, that had him below Carlton and all these. He's been quietly one of the best corners in this league this season. He just gets overlooked. And Kirby gets interceptions. The run defense is still there. Still needs to work a bit. AQ is a breakout candidate. Anthony's doing Anthony things. Branch is doing Branch things. And Pat O'Connor, as much as I like you, we need to start phasing him out, I think, and hopefully getting. I know Pascal's a while away in terms of that, but maybe getting a couple of these edge pieces back means we can start moving things around because Davenport can play the 4 right. AQ, so it's developed this season and maybe helps his PFF grade, is the fact he's developed the ability to play from the free tech outwards. We're putting on I think it was 15 pounds in training camp. Defensively, we've been great aside from that week 1 against the Packers where they hit a couple of big plays against a couple of explosive plays, and we lost that game. Kansas City, the diced us, but that's just against the game plan of playing zone and us not playing well in it. Every other game, we've been pretty damn good on defense, aside from, as I say, the turnovers and maybe giving up a touchdown on pretty much every open drive we face. But if that's what it takes for Shep to gather the data, okay, this is what they really want to do in this game, and then adjust and then pretty much shut them out for the rest of the games, I'm happy to give up that touchdown, to be honest.
Got a question to come to from Grandizer, but first, just a couple of stats I've just seen when you were talking. Goff obviously has a low PFF grade compared to previous years. He has made some mistakes. It hasn't looked altogether fluid. And yet, amongst all quarterbacks in the NFL, he leads it in on-target throws per pass attempt with 80.9%. Below him, Sam Darnold at 79%, Patrick Mahomes at 76%, Bryce Young at 76%, Jaden Daniels 75%, Kyler Murray 75%, Trevor Lawrence 75%. League average is 68%. So he is significantly above the league average and the highest of any quarterback. And that comes off the back of the pressure rate. Of course, you'd expect on-target rate to fall as pressure rate rises, because duh. Jared Goff is the 5th highest pressured quarterback in the NFL per dropback. 24.5% of his dropbacks he's pressured on, which seems ridiculous. League average is 19.5%. The people above him, well, 2 aren't starters anymore, and 1 was only a backup to begin with, in Jake Browning and Russell Wilson. The other 2, Justin Herbert, who has no offensive line, and Justin Fields, who doesn't need an offensive line, he'll do it all himself anyway. So, Goff being up there in terms of pressure rate per dropback and being that on target has to be applauded. I think that we have dealt him the hardest hand he's had in years here with the turnover we've seen on the offensive line. And he's not as good as last year. There's no doubt about it. But what he's done with what he's been given, I think this performance is more impressive than in previous years because of the adversity he's faced. And the fact that people aren't talking about the offensive struggles that we've had at a national level. We're talking about it in a microcosm as Lions fans because we know this team. But the fact that nationally they're saying things like, there's been no drop-off since the offensive coordinator has gone. It's remarkable what Goff has done to make that happen. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Grandizer had a question for us saying, at this point in the season, who is your Lions MVP, defensive MVP, rookie MVP, offensive MVP, most improved player? So, I mean, we normally do end of season rewards. We've never done mid-season before, but let's throw it out there. Who are your answers to the questions?
Overall MVP, Pele. He's the number 1 tackle in football. Be it just absolute beast. Offensive MVP, if you can't put Penne. Probably still Amon-Ra. I know obviously Gibbs had the flashy plays last week, but Amon-Ra's just that quietly consistent. Well, not quietly consistent, just that consistent number 1 target in this offense. Does his work, does the run blocking, does everything. I know he's had a couple of rough fourth down drops past couple of weeks, but that doesn't like him. Catches pretty much everything, does runs every route, and etc. not just a slot receiver, despite what some people say. So he's offensive MVP, defensive one, Hutch, easy, like up there in pressures for the league, up there for sacks, lead league for forced fumbles, etc., etc. Rookie, it's actually hard with rookie because Ratledge has been an every damn starter, but Tyleek has arguably played better out of the two. So which do I go for? I'll give it to Tyleek, because everyone looks the offensive line, and Ratledge has had some great plays, but again, Tyleek's been quietly consistent. He's had a couple of rough plays, but was putting his hands up into the pass and is getting those patch breakdowns. He's been getting some good run stopping, and in the past couple of weeks, the pass rushing's come on. So him as the rookie MVP and a most improved player. Honestly, don't know if most improved. AQ, I guess, considering where he was 12 months ago, getting signed to our practice squad / the roster pretty much off the street. And now he's one of the best edge twos in the league by production and PFF grading at this year. So probably him.
Okay, MVP Hutch. Close between him and Penne, but I think although AQM has done very well opposite him when he's not played very much. And if you have a look at Tyleek coming in, DJ Reader and what he's asked to do, and then whoever's up at Aiden, the defensive line has only got pressure early on, if Hutch has got it, really. The fact that we have stayed competitive in games to the point where we're maybe the number one defense in football so far this season, Hutch deserves a lot of that credit. Offensive MVP is probably Penne, then for me, because he's not overall. I think that Gibbs deserves a massive shout, considering that the offensive line has struggled on early downs in run blocking. I think they have, at least early in games. They grind teams down, but I think Gibbs has made a huge amount out of very little. Obviously, Laporta is up there. Obviously, Amon-Ra is up there too. Defensive MVP and most improved player is Jack Campbell. If I'm giving Hutch overall MVP, and they're going to be different. I think Jack has improved so much. He already improved last year to the year before in a big way, but he's elevated himself from a linebacker 1, unquestioned, but top 20 to active number 1, because obviously the number 1 is done for the year at the moment. That's a massive leap. That's not in the same stratosphere, and because he's the green dot player. I was going to call him blue dot player. I don't know what that is. Green dot player. Everything is tied around him. His communication. And he was a not timid guy, but he didn't want to use his voice too much when he first came in. And maybe that was deference as a rookie to the rest of the players. But he's found his voice. And the defense, the way it's been doing things, the trickery it's been showing as it shows one coverage and then turns into something else after the quarterback check. That only works when he's on all cylinders, and giving him that responsibility and then him playing well too is remarkable, because I think if you have a look at players that are given a captain's role in a sport, often because they're worrying about the duties of that player, the green dot player, but in cricket, and I know that a lot of NFL fans won't have an appreciation for cricket massively if they're American. I know that cricket does happen, but it's not massive as a sport. Captaincy is often given to a charismatic player who is right on top of his game because they're definitely going to play every single game. And what happens when they're made captain is they almost instantly become worse at their discipline, whether they're a batter, whether they're a pitcher or bowler. They almost certainly have a detraction because they don't just have their mind on what they're doing, but what everyone is doing. Jack Campbell in that green dot role has to worry about what everyone is doing on that field and listen to the play call come in, communicate all of that, and then they see something and they change it and he's got to do all of that. But also, he's got to actually worry about the guy he's up against or what zone he's taking or if he spots anything in the backfield that is of interest, and so he's actually going to go and make a play himself, which is off script. The fact that he's managed to put this performance on tape is nothing short of remarkable. So I think he deserves even more credit than the statistics are telling us he deserves.
Yeah, that's fair. I was just thinking, you saying cricket, and I was like, instantly, you know, which probably popped into mind. Joe Root when he got the captaincy, but then maybe Jack Campbell's the Ben Stokes.
Maybe.
Stokes has been a beast. I know this is getting sidetracked, but I love Ben Stokes. I love Ben Stokes. I love Bazball. Ashes can't come soon enough.
All right, we are coming into the latter end of this conversation. We are going to be quite brief about the weekend's results because, well, I've read a lot recently while we've been off the air in the last week or so about the need for us to become a bit of a smaller show, and a lot of people actually don't listen to us because of our length. I know that a lot of people do listen to us because of how long the show is. I want to try and strike a nice balance. We committed to in the off-season trying to make these episodes a little bit shorter, and I think we've achieved that, but we'll try our best to kind of cover everything we want to cover, but in brief. We've covered all the stats. We've talked about the team, the depth chart, the injuries, all of that stuff. But now a bit of self-scouting. What have we seen from this team that we have liked and want to do more of? Even stuff we liked that we think we should change just because we're worried that people might match it. Is there stuff that we've done that we don't like, that we need to change? Is there something that we just think we should put in, regardless of whether we like something or not? It's just a wrinkle that we'd like to include. Yes, you can say defensive tackle at fullback if you want. But yeah, anything come to mind about this team in terms of things you would change for the second half of the season?
Well, you were pretty close with what I would add in as a wrinkle. People who watch Alabama will know what they've been doing with Caden Proctor this year in terms of the trick plays. Give me some of them, please. That'd be beautiful with Penne. But yeah. Seriously though, third down needs to be better. That's a tendency. I don't like the stuff. For example, just the key downs to play calling. So again, going back to the Bucks game, the fourth down play call, though it was badly executed seemingly because Amon and Jama were both open, but those kind of things, that needs to get better. Balance between Gibbs and Monty. I know God Monty has not been as efficient as Gibbs this year in terms of yards per carry, but there's a reason why what we did last year worked. Go back to that a bit more because it's gone a bit too much in Gibbs' way, in a way which I know is kind of silly saying last year give Gibbs more carries, but by the by. Defensively, honestly, I don't want us to change that much. Just keep what we were doing in the Bucks game. Just add the personnel. Like, pretty happy defensively. It's just offensively. I don't know if it's just a bit too much on the rookies' plates. That's why I've had to dump stuff back. But that's the one that really needs to focus. And obviously, go to Pro Detroit. All those that have got a lot more time than us two who now work that get to sit down, actually watch the tape and tell you the stuff because we can only say too much. And obviously, don't want to give you 5 minutes excursuses when you don't want it.
I'm struggling with this a little bit because I think a lot of what we have done badly at is stuff which actually pays off down the line. So early on in the season, in fact throughout the season, runs up the gut are getting stopped at the line of scrimmage, sometimes for loss, pretty regularly, at most getting a couple of yards per play. It seems like there's very little success happening there. But you see teams crumble under the pressure going into quarter three, quarter four. It's hard for me to say go away from that because I think it does yield results eventually. And there was a stat which was posted by someone on our Discord that was from Al Carston of Pride of Detroit, which said that Jared Goff passing versus stacked boxes with David Montgomery on the field, which is where we've really struggled. He's 14 of 15 passing with 153.5 passer rating, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 11.3 yards per attempt, 81% success rate, 18.8 explosive pass rate. Those are ridiculous stats. And it is because people were overcompensating, playing the run against us, knowing how good we are at it, but they're not actually going to have stacked boxes and play against the run if we don't actually show them that we're willing to run the ball into it. So we are setting up Goff having explosive plays in the pass by making people respect the run in what seems like disadvantageous situations to us. So I think a lot of people are looking at that happening live and going, I wish we didn't do this. I would say I'm okay with it as long as you are mixing up things like we're still seemingly doing too much run, pass. which I just detest because it's too predictable. I would love to see a bit more pass, pass, run, pass, run, pass, all of that sort of pass, run, run, whatever. Just do a little bit more of everything to mix things up. I don't think run, run, pass is a formula which necessarily works for this team overall, even though they definitely want to run the ball on early downs. I get that. But by not passing on early downs, I also think you give something up too. Stay unpredictable. I think that's really going to help. The screen game hasn't worked so far. It has come on a little bit in recent weeks. I think we've done better with it. The play design is getting better with that. So that's not something which is overly concerning me. It's a work in progress. Jameson Williams is something I really want to see improvement from, but not on Jamo's side. I think he's fine. And not on Goff's side. I think he's fine. The offensive line has really struggled, allowing plays to develop so that Jamo can be a factor in the game. You still need to let him run deep to be that decoy. I hope our pass blocking continues to improve so that those deep routes can be a bigger factor of our offense. I would love to see Jamo run more crosses, because in the limited amount that we've seen him run crosses, anecdotally, without any statistical evidence, I believe he's been pretty effective. I actually think having scissors with Amon-Ra and Jamo could be exceptionally useful to us, because the speed of Jamo, the spacing of Amon-Ra, I think that would work very, very well. Anything which gets stretch horizontally or vertically for Jamo, I just want to see him be a bit more of a factor. We saw early on in the season attempts to get him the ball on end arounds. Clearly, we're trying to set something up with that sort of thing. Whenever we've run it into the defense, which has not been ideal. I still want to get him the ball behind the line of scrimmage. I wouldn't be against giving him the ball as a running back. The way that he blocks, he could be an effective pass blocker. We put Amon-Ra in the backfield because he can do it. Give Jameson that chance and sometimes hand the ball off to him in the running back position like we have done with Amon-Ra. I think Amon-Ra's had 3 run plays so far this year. A lot of that has been, he had 2 little jet sweep handoffs with the option to pitch, which he's taken both times in designed plays to try and get first downs or touchdowns, both of which are successful. But put the ball in Jameson's hands any way you can. It's not a justification for the salary we're paying him. It's that physically, he's the most, apart from Penne, he's the most gifted player on the team. Give him the ball.
Just what you think, because I've got to think. Jameson Williams on crossing routes so far this season. He's had 44 such routes. He's been targeted 7 times, 5 catches, a 71.4 catch rate, 123 yards, to 24.6 yards per catch, with 89 of those coming after the catch.
But he's only been targeted 18% of the time on such routes.
Mm-hmm.
That's low. Even when you've got all the weapons we have, that's low. Especially when he's been so effective when targeted. I would say he's probably been effective when targeted because Goff knows when to pick his moments. But number of times he's thrown a different pass, and we've said on review, if you just wait a tenth of a second here, Jameson Williams is coming free with all the air in the world.
The 4th down against the Bucs last week.
Yeah, so I think that would be something I would like to see. On defense, I have no notes. It is, as you said, about getting healthier. Aleem getting more time on task is going to make a massive difference because it's going to take pressure off Hutch. It's going to allow him to get home more easily. And actually, I'm quite hopeful about what we have at the edge on the other side. Wheat has shown things. Al-Qadin has shown things. You know, it's...
Lacey does his job.
Lacey does his job.
Lacey is what I believe Josh Pascal to be, but he actually does it, and he's healthy doing it.
John Kaminsky.
Yes! Bring him back.
The lesser seen John Kaminsky. So that's kind of my adjustments. It's kind of hard to say because this team's a top 5 unit overall. So what adjustments would you like to see? I don't know. Like, okay, I know you guys are listening to this because we've done the research, but in some ways it's like, you know what, this team's pretty bloody good right now already.
Yeah, it just sucks that most of the stuff that I use for defensive stat stuff hasn't come out for this week, so I can't tell you where we rank in all my lovely EPA stats. But yeah, the only thing I'd say is maybe, as I say, Shep's already done it, but lean into the more man than zone, because we've seen what happens when we play zone. We just get picked apart.
All right. Final bit on the lines before we talk about the weekend that was in football. Are there any moves that you would make ahead of the trade deadline, which is a week from now?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next Tuesday.
1 week to go for trades. What would you do, if anything?
I honestly don't know, because the only thing I'd maybe trade for is the hardest thing to trade for, and that's just another offensive line piece just to shore us up, especially at tackle position. But those rarely happen, and when they do, they cost a lot. Look at what the Vikings had to trade to the Jags for Cam Robinson last year, I believe it was, when Darisaw went down. Those are rare, because I know everyone's looking at cornerback, but we're going to get healthier there, and I trust the depth, especially since they've played now. That will be okay there. At the edge, we'll hopefully get Davenport back soon. And until then, as you've just said, you can rely on Hutch, AQ, Tyra Sweet, Tyler Lacey, even a bit of Pat O'Connor, who plays at the 4 right, same with Quentin Jefferson. And Barnes, the way we've been using him the last couple of weeks, he's good at the edge. The only place I really see a proper weakness on this team is at that offensive tackle position. But you're not going to go out, and as I kind of jokingly mentioned last week, we're not going to go out and trade like 2 first-round picks for Colton Miller just to get to him. We're just going to have to sit there and wait. We probably will do a low-level move like we always do. Like, I'm thinking back to like the Trinity Bensons and the Donovan Peoples-Jones. I know we made the trade for Zedarius last year, which is the big one, but we kind of needed that. It's probably going to be something like that. That's a low-level trade. Maybe if I don't know, well, as we're getting to, maybe if the Jets didn't win this week, we could have traded for one of their pieces for nice and cheap. The price just went up on them, but I honestly don't know, because we don't need a Jacoby Myers. We don't need a corner piece. An edge, we seemingly are good right now, as Brad said a couple of weeks ago.
I think low level you can go after a corner. As the leader of the Nick Whiteside fan club before he played in the most recent game,
True.
I still think you could potentially add a body to that room, someone who's better than the practice squad player that we signed potentially. There are several cornerbacks who are meant to be available. Tariq Woolen has been mentioned as a trade candidate. ESPN thinks there's a 50% chance he gets traded. Alontae Taylor apparently might be available. I don't believe he will be. I'm not sure I necessarily want him. ESPN says
prefer him to Woolen, but
what else do we have? Michael Carter the second apparently for the Jets, 45% chance.
Slot corner.
Yeah, not my guy either. Roger McCreary they had, and he has gone. 35% chance they had of that. They didn't list the Rams as a fit, but hey. Who else is on this list? Cam Taylor-Britt is up there. He's been linked to the Lions. 25% chance of him getting traded. I think he's in the final year of his rookie deal.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to pay him. He's been league average since he entered. But frankly, in terms of quality of physical traits and what have you, he's probably an improvement on what's fit and available right now for us. And because he's going to be available as a free agent after this season, you got to think that something like a 5th or 6th round pick might get that done. I would consider it. Otherwise, I'm good. And if someone big is available and you want to take a swing, I'm okay with it. I don't really want to make a massive swing. I know that other people, and a lot of chat in our Discord has been about this, a lot of people will disagree with me on whether we should take a swing or not. I can see someone like Jalen Phillips. I really could see something like that. But frankly, not for anything more than a 3rd round pick. Of course, the Lions don't have a 3rd round pick this year coming up. But that's the sort of capital I would be okay giving up to get it done. I would not be okay giving up a 2nd. I think they'll probably want a 2nd for him, despite his injury troubles. But someone who has that sort of 1st round pedigree, who can really make a difference on the defensive line as an edge player, and like a 70%, 80% almost every down player. I think that could be something that we should consider. Jermaine Johnson apparently might be available, although they said I think that they're not going to trade for him. They're not going to trade him away. But apparently they want a second round pick for him. And I think considering his injury problems, that's insane as a valuation. So that's way beyond what I want to pay for him. I know it will make Ash the happiest boy in the world. Those are kind of the guys I'm looking at. I know that you would probably maybe mention Arden Key or something like that.
Yeah, he fits that kind of edge profile we like, and he supposedly is available for the Titans. Well, they just made another trade today, obviously, said McCreary, so maybe he's available. But yeah, it's going to be that kind of play. It's not going to be Zedarius. It's not going to be a Jalen Phillips, probably, which I know, as you say, will annoy some of the fan base. But what is it that Dan said in the owners' meetings earlier this year? He doesn't want to mortgage the kids' college fund for a nice holiday this year. We've got Hutch to come up to pay. We've got Bryant to come up to pay. We've got Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, potentially Anzalone again. All these players that we've got to re-sign to new deals. There ain't a lot of cap to roll around to, splash on a trade this year. It might mean that if we trade for a Jalen Phillips and then we have to extend him, it means we have to say goodbye to one of those players. And do you want to? Do you really want to sacrifice someone that we've taken, developed, and turned into a top 10 player at their position, arguably, for a potential win it now move? I don't know.
I think if you committed to a big trade for a big player, you would be committing to going on to the Eagles style of pushing money into the future to lengthen how long this team could stay together, and you would be putting a reset button in for the entire team in 5 or 6 years' time. I don't really want to do that, but I think if you do that, instead of trading for a guy, making an expensive 1-year rental and just continuing on as you are, I think you say, pay everyone, max defer money into the future, still stagger everything as much as you can, and then you find yourself being the New Orleans Saints in 6 years' time and going, let's blow everything up and try and transition, get draft capital for quality players who are on contracts we can't stomach, have one terrible year like the Eagles have managed to do, just have one terrible season, get a couple of nice draft picks in that year, have all the draft capital in the world, draft well, as we know Holmes can do, and rebound again. If you want to go into that timeline, I'm okay, but if you do, you have to win a Super Bowl. Whereas I think with this team, making it to the Super Bowl, making it to several championship games when you don't mortgage your future is sufficient because you're giving yourself multiple bites at the cherry. If you go for it, you must win.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to put on the line. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this next week. I think as time goes on, a majority of Lions fans are starting to salivate at the prospect of trading for someone and starting to chomp at the bit and get twitchy about whether we'll do anything at all. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we might do a trade deadline live. So on Tuesday we may go live next week to see if anything happens. But anyway, we're going to put to bed the Lions' first half of the season conversation there, and we're going to start talking about the week's results for Week 8. Starting off, Ash, with the Vikings' loss against the Chargers, 37-10. An NFC North team falls behind 500 for the first time in a little while. Herbert dominated, looked like himself, even though the O-line isn't really there. The Vikings are finding themselves in kind of really troubling territory right now, considering everything they've put into this team and the position at quarterback, which looks unsettled or bad.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it doesn't really help when their offense is just falling apart. Like Darisaw left the game with an injury. Just they couldn't get much going. Like I know Jefferson had his usual good game, but that was about it. Like they went to Max Brosmer, who I know we're big fans of on this podcast. I did mention him way back in the possibility they cut him. Maybe we could sign him onto the practice squad as QB3. He's that good, but they're going to turn to JJ this week, which will be fun. No, they brought back Aaron Jones in this game, 5 carries for 15 yards. Not exactly the best season debut for him, but the big thing is that finally, it seems teams other than the Lions have found out this Vikings defense, and that's maybe good news in one way because it means that they'll get even worse and worse. But at the same time, it maybe means they'll start adjusting and we'll have to learn again. But I'm not worried about them, and I'm just happy for the Chargers. You know, obviously, Herbert doesn't have an offensive line right now. Slowly coming together. I think Alt's back or this week, so that'll be fun. But the big news, obviously, there's two big ones. Obviously, number one is Aronda Gadsden breakout. I'm here for it. I know Anson loved him a lot as a former Syracuse player, therefore I like him as well. What he's doing for them as that reliable tight end option they've needed, great. I love to see that connection. But the big thing I'm here for is the Kamani Vidal breakout. I know he's been buried on depth charts the past couple of years, and now he's got his chance with the injuries that's happened to both their running backs, who I drafted in pretty much every one of my fantasy leagues like an idiot, but managed to pick up Vidal in a couple, and his breakout finally getting a starting role. I love it.
Next up, Dolphins beat the Falcons 34-10, and I tell you what, massive credit to the Miami Dolphins because the Falcons team came off a big win the week before. I know Kirk Cousins played in this game, but Tua looks a bit like Tua. Achane looked really good, so did Ollie Gordon. Waddle looked like himself. It was a super impressive performance away from home against a team in form.
Yeah, the biggest impressive thing to me is that the league's worst run defense somehow held Bijan Robinson and co to 45 yards on 17 carries.
And forced a fumble.
And exactly, like, that's what I mentioned earlier when I said, oh, even the worst teams can, like, with all the matchups and going there against LA can win games. I can't remember who said it on Twitter a couple of days ago when this was happening, but teams like the Dolphins always have this one game around the trade deadline that makes them think they can be contenders and it makes them fool themselves. This is it for them. But at the same time, who the hell are the Atlanta Falcons? Like, they are the most unpredictable team in the league right now in the worst way possible because they win games they shouldn't, Buffalo, and they lose games they shouldn't. They need to sort it out because all they've done now is they've doomed themselves. The NFC North, the NFC South will be won by the Bucs. It won't be particularly close. They're just battling for second with the Panthers and right now because they're not winning the division.
Next up, Jets beat the Bengals. They've got a win on the board for Aaron Glenn, 39-38, including 2 touchdowns in the final 3 minutes.
Yep, Justin Fields had a revenge game against his own team.
Yeah, great way of putting it.
And he didn't even throw the winning touchdown because obviously it was Bruce Hall. I hope you liked what I put in the Discord for you earlier, though, when you ran the NFL. That this play that they used to set up the winning touchdown was the Brock Wright play against the Jets a couple of years ago.
I did see that. Yes.
They used your favorite play to set it up. But yeah, fair play to the Jets. And I know Dan was asked about it in the press conference because, as reporters like to do, they like to share their own stories. Yeah, he texts AJ about it. He's happy for him. But fair play to them. Like, Brees Hall's going to get a nice trade somewhere. Hopefully it's not Kansas City.
Next up, Browns fall to the Patriots 32-12, including a 21-point third quarter for the Patriots, who were only up 9-7 at halftime. They just ran away with it, and Drake May continues this incredible run.
Yeah, I love it. Drake, I keep telling you. Drake May is real. Trevian Henderson finally took over that backfield with 10 carries, 75 yards. No, Ramondre Stevenson got 14, but only for 34 yards. So hopefully they'll wake up and actually, make the change they need to. On the Brown side of things, I know Quinton Judkins has got diagnosed with an AC joint sprain, so he's going to be questionable for this week. But Harold Fanning continues to be a damn good tight end for them. And even Njoku, who simply has become the sort of number 2 tight end in a way in terms of targets and that, he still did good, got his touchdown and that. So they're seemingly making it work with Dylan Gabriel, and that's why there's certain rumours about Shador looking for a trade, which will be bloody hilarious.
Next up, the Giants over the Eagles 38-20, and the Eagles eventually ran away with it and looked pretty good for the win. But it could have all been different if the Giants strip play on a
Tush push.
Yeah, tush push was not whistled dead. It was whistled dead after the ball had been stripped, but they called forward progress. The play was called wrong. The referees got it massively wrong, and the game could have been massively different if they could have just done their job.
Yeah, and unfortunately for me, that's not the biggest story coming out of this game because, as you can see, I've got my hand on my heart in a memorial for Cam Scatterboo, my lovely Nafanda old man. I'm sorry that you had to dislocate and break your ankle and now you're out for the season. That was horrific to watch, especially since it's the play right after I turned on Channel 5 to show my parents the NFL. Thank you for that. You absolute. But yeah, rest up, Cam. Come back better. Come back healthy next season because the league will miss you. Saquon, why did you have to get injured after putting up 35 points in fantasy? Because you single-handedly pretty much lost me my matchup against my flag head coach this week, who was not playing a QB. So fuck you, Saquon. But nice to see Tanker Bigsby coming in relief as the sort of number 2. Absolutely looking great as well. Like if Barkley does have to miss some time, they obviously they've got a game this week and then they've got the bye. So if they have to start Tanker Bigsby next week, they're actually not going to have too much of a downgrade. And who would have thought that, considering the tear that Barkley was on last season?
All right, Bills Panthers 40-9 to the Bills. Panthers couldn't get out of their own way. James Cook has a day. I think, honestly, the less said about this game, the better, because it was a bit rough to watch. Andy Dalton is not a starting quarterback. There's a good reason why. You could have a look at his 2 fumbles and point at that and say maybe that was a big problem. You could have a look at the interception he threw. But I think the most egregious thing was little things like at the end of the first half, he was in field goal range and he took a sack with no timeouts remaining, with everyone saying, you can't take a sack on this play. And it's like, he's been in the league long enough that you can't be making that sort of error. But Cook, 216 yards on the ground, no catches for him, which I think is a bit strange for him. But, 19 carries, 216 and 2. What a day for James Cook, a rebound.
Yeah, definitely. What was it that if a couple of weeks ago Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Flacco was the Unk Bowl and the Icy Hot Bowl? Well, Andy Dalton is grandpa by this point. It's just he's not there. The good, and obviously I know Tech got some volume, which made me happy. But the big news is Jackson Hawes, another tight end I really liked in this draft class, having a breakout, absolute maul in the run game, and then 2 catches on 3 targets, 15 yards, which doesn't sound like much, but I think both were on 3rd downs. So moving the chains and having impacts in the run game, helping James Cook get his 216 rushing yards. That's a pretty good day for him.
Bears Ravens 30-16 to Baltimore. Everyone calling for a remarkable performance from Pro Bowl quarterback Tyler Huntley. And frankly, he outplayed Caleb Williams, who I thought looked fine. And I don't understand the Chicago Bears freak out because Caleb looked fine, but it was not enough to beat Tyler Huntley, who had 53 yards on 8 carries, as well as 17 of 22 for 186 and a touchdown. Derrick Henry looked a bit more like himself. Yards per carry, not impressive, but he did have 2 touchdowns on the ground. And, receiving-wise, for the Bears, Adunze went for over 100 yards. DJ Moore had some remarkable receptions in there. It wasn't all bad for the Bears. They just couldn't put it all together.
Yeah, and maybe this shows that they shouldn't push away Cole Kmet so soon because he wasn't accessed for this game and suddenly their offense falls apart. Maybe you do need that kind of tight end, Ben Johnson. But yeah, everyone kind of predicted it. Like the Bears were on their historic run, winning 4 in a row since they played us all this. You could see it coming a mile away. This is the kind of game that they would overlook and they'd eventually lose. And it happened. Huntley didn't have to do too much. Henry didn't really have to take over the game too much. They just came about and did their business, and somehow put 30 points, which is insane. But it didn't look exactly great. But more, yeah, it's just, it was a meh game to keep an eye on.
Next is the 49ers against the Texans, and a massive win for the Texans, 26-15, to kickstart their season. They were 2-4, facing a 49ers team with Mac Jones under center who still haven't missed a beat. If the Texans had lost this game to go to 2-5, they're staring down the barrel of no playoffs. They could still be, but a big win there. 49ers fall to, I think, what should be for them a disappointing loss. It was always going to be a tough game, but that was always going to be tough, Ash.
Yeah, fair play to the Texans defense for just absolutely shutting down the 49ers offense. Finally, someone worked out how to shut down Mac Jones and his ragtag bunch of receivers, four of whom all got above 40 yards, and then none of the top 10 yards. And then TMC just wasn't there when your leading rusher was nearly Mac Jones on 2 carries. That ain't good. But yeah, fair play to the Texans, as there is some breaking news. 2 bits, in fact. Number 1, Kendall Fuller has been released from the practice squad, which makes me sad. But number 2, Carson Wentz is undergoing season-ending surgery on his left shoulder. Therefore, we will definitely not be facing him on Sunday. It will either be JJ McCarthy or Max Bosmer at this point.
Fun. Right, next up is the Buccaneers at the Saints, 23-3 to the Bucs. The score is not particularly overwhelming. I thought that the Saints put up a really good defensive performance here. I mean, Mayfield only had 150 yards through the air, and they only had 88 yards on the ground, so almost no offense in this game at all. They also had 2 fumbles where they lost one, but again, the Saints can't get out of their own way. They had 2 fumbles of their own that they both lost. It's just one of those games, really. I mean, they had significantly more offensive yardage, did New Orleans, but, one of those things.
Yeah, again, this was horrific to keep an eye on because I did have vested interest with White and Tez Johnson and Ibuka. I do have him in one fantasy teams, but it was a weird game to watch because the Saints could have easily put the Bucs away, but they just couldn't. And I know obviously the Bucs were probably motivated by the fact that what we did to them, kind of thing. But yeah, they didn't look exactly great. They have kind of fallen back down to earth after playing this. Maybe it's a bit of the Honolulu flu and all that, but yeah, as much as I predicted earlier that the Bucs will run away with the NFC South, this is why, because they can play bad against their own division, and the division just won't try and beat them at all. Like, it's disappointing. And no, obviously, Shaheed is the one that everyone's looking at. I know obviously their receivers are getting a look at. Like, Olave will cost a lot more, so people are looking at Shaheed. But he is not worthy of the 3rd round price they're putting on him, as much as he's their leading receiver right now. It's just tough for the Saints. It really is.
All right, next up, coming towards the end here, Cowboys at Broncos. Broncos 44-24 victors, scored more than 10 points in 3 out of the 4 quarters. Dallas, on offense, were poor because Dak shat the bed against one of the best defenses in the league. And, with J.K. Dobbins going for over 100 yards on the ground on 15 carries and Bo Nix throwing for 4 touchdowns and a pick, if you ain't perfect on offense, you ain't getting close to this Broncos team who go up to 6-2. They're threatening the Chiefs to win that division, despite the Chiefs being up there in terms of all the power rankings, that start they've had. If the Broncos don't start dropping some games soon, they're going to be in a roundabout at the end.
Exactly, yeah. And especially since I think it was going into this half of this game, the Broncos have scored 60 points over 3 quarters. And that's without all these stats coming out of Bo Nix in the 4th quarter, and that suddenly he just becomes electric and is having like an 80% success rate on his passes and that. This Broncos team is perhaps for real. Like, J.K. Dobbins has looked great in the backfield for them. The receiving game has just worked out. Like, the catch that Pat Bryant had in this game was amazing. And yet on the other side, like, Dak, didn't look exactly too great with the 2 interceptions, but George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb still got it done through the air. It was just the other weapons, like Jake Ferguson, one of my beloved tight end crushes from a couple of years ago in the draft. 1 target, no catches, bit rough. And then the Broncos did to the Cowboys what the Bucs tried to do us, just blitz and try and stop the run game. And it works. Like Javonte Williams, I know he got the 2 touchdowns, but under 3.5 yards a carry. Dak Prescott was their leading rusher in average yards per carry with 5.2, and I was on 6 carries. Like, they just couldn't get going on the ground, and it meant that they were one dimensional, and the Broncos could just tee off on that.
Titans at Colts. Colts 38, Titans 14. I mean, this is just a good team against a bad team, and it went exactly as you'd expect. And Cam Ward had plays that are going to go to his credit, and TJ Spears had a good comeback from injury, 9 carries, 59 yards and a touchdown. But Jonathan Taylor might be the best running back in football. We've spoken about that previously. Michael Pittman continues to be very, very good. So does Tyler Warren and that receiving group. Alec Pierce is making something of himself. Everything is coming up Millhouse for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, especially. And I noticed you didn't mention one particular piece of that Colts offense.
Amir
because
Abdullah?
the guy in the center. True.
Sorry.
No, that's fair. That's fair. The funny thing that happened after this game is there was Giants fans tweeting, "Oh yeah, this is what happens when you give Daniel Jones a good offensive line and a good running back." As if Daniel Jones didn't spend most of his Giants career with Saquon Barkley beside him. Like, come on, people. But yeah, Indianapolis Jones continues on, and it's getting really weird now. All these metrics that their offense is breaking, they're like one of the most efficient offenses ever. Like, what? Like, they are this fluke. They are a fluky ass team. They are. I hope this curse does fall on them, because I do kind of hate the Colts a tiny bit. They're just this year's Commanders, aren't they? Where everything goes their way in offense, the defense is just about good enough to like not lose them games, but then it will come crashing down next year. I can see it.
Feels like it. They'll pay Daniel Jones $50 million a year, and then he'll be shit.
Exactly. I just feel sorry for the Titans, because again, as much as I joke about hating Cam Ward, I do really like him, and he's not there. Like, and the only bright spark he really has to throw to is Eilick. Like, I know DK was their leading receiver. He's good as a big play weapon, but it's just they need to put a lot more around him. And that defense that was so good last year, it's just not there this year, which is why they're trading away all their pieces. Cam's going to be stuck on a rebuilding team, unfortunately.
Finally, Sunday Night Football, Packers over the Steelers 35-25. Everyone was hoping that Aaron Rodgers was going to come and beat them into submission, and they were up 16-7 at the half. And they were up 19-14 at the start of the fourth quarter. But the Packers get there eventually with a 21-point fourth quarter. Jordan Love is getting plenty of plaudits after a 29 of 37 for 360 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions game. I think it really belongs to Tucker Kraft, 7 of 9 for 143 and 2 including a long of 59. I think Pittsburgh on offense deserve credit. I think they played well. I think Aaron Rodgers played well. But the Pittsburgh defense is bad, and they've spent a lot of money on it, and you cannot spend that sort of money on it and be this poor, because you are always risking having that sort of fourth quarter against basically any team. But when it's against Green Bay, who have enough slightly above average players, they're going to make you pay eventually.
Yeah, and that's without Matthew Golden, their first round pick, really being productive. I know caught all 3 of his targets, but those targets combined for 4 yards. Like, what the hell are they using? Like, why are they using him like this? I do hate Tucker Kraft a bit more now, because as I mentioned earlier with the whole thing against my flag coach, that was the tight end. In this week again, fantasy, my head coach started 3 players who all got 30 plus points. So Tucker Kraft was another one of them, and it made me lose this game because my running backs were shit this week. But I fucking hate you, Tucker Kraft. I hate it. I hated this game. I hated following it in bed, trying to go to sleep, because it felt like trying to support who do I want to win the boxing match in hell, Margaret Thatcher or Jimmy Savile. That's how it felt like. Neither way I was going to win.
All right.
I did just say that.
Yes, you did. All right. Coming to the end of the show, anything else you want to chat about before we go?
Just excited to have Lions football back. It was a rough week, having to sit there and watch Red Zone and not, just all the games are bad this week. The only interesting game was the Jets one, and that's just because they managed to come back. Every other game was shit. So it's nice to actually have some good football back on my screen, except for English football, because, Man City.
All right, we're going to call it a show. Next episode, College Football Podcast, Wednesday, October 29. Looking back at week 9, looking ahead to week 10. The next Lions show we have, we're debating whether to do it really late Thursday for us or on Friday. So just keep your eye out for that in terms of when we go live. We will be live for the Minnesota games, so we'll be doing a play-by-play for that. So looking forward to it. Let's get back to it. Socials, you know where to find us. Roar the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. The website, rotluk.com. Find Ash's preview articles there. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you to the guys on the audio pod, to the guys listening live. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. We'll see you for the college show in a couple of days. Thanks to Ash for doing this for me. Let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.